A selfish millionaire makes the cruel decision to abandon his cancer-stricken daughter on a deserted road. Years later, he comes across a surprising interview on television. The woman facing the camera is none other than the sick daughter he rejected. What she reveals in front of millions of people leaves the world and her own father in shock. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, tell us which city you're watching us from, and we'll keep going. The sun was setting over the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, when the luxury car came to an abrupt stop on the side of a deserted road. The engine roared for a few seconds before falling silent, leaving only the sound of the wind blowing gently through the empty fields around it. Emma, a girl of just 10 years old, looked confused at her father, William, who remained motionless in the driver's seat, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. She didn't understand why they had stopped there, so far from home, in a place she didn't recognize. "Daddy?" she called, her voice small and uncertain. "What are we doing here?" William didn't answer immediately. His fingers drummed nervously on the steering wheel, and Emma noticed a bead of sweat trickling down his forehead, despite the cool evening air that was approaching. "Emma," he finally spoke, his voice strangely controlled. "I need you to be strong. Now." The girl felt a tightness in her chest. She knew that tone. It was the same one doctors used when they had bad news about her treatment. Instinctively, her hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair, seeking comfort in the familiarity of the object that had accompanied her for as long as she could remember. William got out of the car, walked around, and opened the passenger door. With mechanical movements, he took the wheelchair from the trunk and set it up beside the car. Emma watched every move, a growing fear taking hold of her. "Daddy, what's going on?" she asked again, her voice now shaking slightly. William picked her up, avoiding direct eye contact, and placed her in the wheelchair. Emma noticed that his hands were shaking slightly, something she had never seen before. Her father had always been the picture of strength and control. "Emma, my daughter," he began, finally kneeling in front of her. Sometimes in life we need to make difficult decisions." The girl's eyes widened, a terrible realization beginning to form in her mind. "Daddy, you're not going to leave me here, are you?" The question hung in the air for a moment, heavy and painful. William closed his eyes, as if the words had struck him physically. "I can't care for you any longer, Emma," he said, the words coming out quickly, as if he feared his resolve would fail if he delayed too long. "You need care I can't give. It's better this way." Emma felt as if the entire world had crashed down on her. Tears began to stream down her pale cheeks, her small body shaking with fear and disbelief. "But Daddy, I promise I'll get better," she begged, her voice broken by sobs. "I'll be strong. I'll fight this disease. Please don't leave me." William stood abruptly, turning his back to his daughter. Emma could see his shoulders tense, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said, his voice now distant and cold. "One day you'll understand." With those words, he walked back to the car, ignoring Emma's desperate screams. The sound of the door closing was like a gunshot in the silence of the night. "Daddy, Daddy!" Emma screamed, her voice lost in the roar of the engine as it roared to life. She tried to move her wheelchair, but her small, weak hands could barely. Turned the wheels in the loose dirt at the side of the road. The car began to pull away, its taillights growing smaller and smaller in the gathering darkness. Emma kept screaming, begging, until her voice was a hoarse whisper. "Please do not leave me." But the car was already gone, swallowed up by the night. Emma stood there alone, a small figure in a wheelchair on the side of an unfamiliar road. The wind blew softly, ruffling her hair and drying the tears on her face. The stars were beginning to appear in the sky, oblivious to the drama unfolding below them. Emma looked up, feeling smaller and more alone than she had ever felt in her entire short life. At that moment, something inside her changed. A spark of determination ignited in her chest, mixed with the pain and fear. If she survived this night, Emma swore to herself that she would never again be so vulnerable, so dependent on someone who would abandon her. The hours passed slowly. Emma alternated between silent weeping and tense wakefulness, fearing the sounds of the night around her. She thought of her mother, Eleanor, whom she had never known. Would she have done it? Would she have stayed, even with all the hardships? As the sky began to lighten on the horizon, Emma heard a distant sound. A car was approaching. Her heart raced. Was it her father coming back for her? Part of her wanted it to be, desperate for any sign that she was still loved. Another part, a new part hardened by the night of abandonment, hoped it wasn't. The vehicle appeared around the bend in the road, slowing as it approached. It wasn't William's luxury car, but a rusty old pickup truck. Emma felt a mixture of relief and fear as the vehicle pulled up beside her. A couple stepped out of the truck, looking at her with expressions of shock and concern. The woman was the first to approach, her gentle eyes examining Emma carefully. "My God, child, what happened to you?" she asked, her voice full of concern. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came out. The tears returned, silent this time streaming down her exhausted face. The man approached as well, exchanging a meaningful look with the woman. "Anna," he said softly, "we need to get her out of here. She needs help." Anna nodded, turning her attention back to Emma. "Don't worry, honey. We'll take care of you. My name is Anna, and this is my husband, Charles. We'll get you to safety, okay?" Emma looked at the two of them, feeling a mixture of fear and hope. Something about the kindness in Anna's eyes and Charles's quiet firmness made her nod slightly. As Charles carefully lifted her wheelchair into the truck, Emma took one last look back at the road where her father had disappeared. A part of her still expected to see William's car returning, but the road remained empty. Anna held his hand as Charles started the engine. "It's going to be okay now," she said softly, as the truck pulled away, taking her into an uncertain future. Emma closed her eyes. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew her life would never be the same again. Her father's abandonment had planted a seed of change in her heart, a seed that would, over time, grow and transform her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The road stretched out ahead, taking her away from that terrible night and toward a new chapter in her life. A chapter that, although she didn't know it yet, would be marked by challenges, overcoming, and above all, by the discovery of an inner strength that she didn't even know she possessed. Charles and Anna's truck rolled down the winding road, leaving the place where Emma had been abandoned behind. The sun was rising over the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold, as if trying to erase the darkness of the previous night. In the back seat, Emma sat in silence, her tired eyes fixed on the landscape passing by the window. Anna glanced back every now and then, her face a mix of concern and compassion. "Are you hungry, dear?" she asked softly. Emma just shook her head, not looking away from the window. Charles and Anna exchanged worried looks. What could have happened to this little girl? How could someone abandon a child, especially one with special needs, in the middle of nowhere? After an hour of driving, they arrived at a small town in the countryside. The streets were still almost deserted, with only a few early risers opening their shops or walking to work. Charles parked in front of a simple but well-kept house with a small garden in front. "We're here," he announced, turning off the engine. "This is home, Emma. It's not much, but it's cozy." Anna got out of the car and went to open the door for Emma. Carefully, she and Charles helped the girl out of the vehicle and placed her in her wheelchair. Emma looked at the house with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Let's go inside," Anna said gently. "You must be exhausted." Upon entering the house, Emma was immediately enveloped by a welcoming atmosphere. The living room was small but cozy, with a worn but comfortable sofa and a few plants scattered in the corners. Photos of Charles and Anna smiling in different places decorated the walls, along with a few simple paintings. "I know it's not what you're used to," Charles commented, noticing Emma's glance around the room, "but we'll do our best to make you feel at home." Emma nodded slightly, still not saying a word. Anna knelt beside her chair, looking her in the eyes. "Emma, honey, I know you've been through something terrible," she said softly. "We won't force you to talk about it if you don't want to, but we're here to help, okay? You're safe now." For the first time since they had found her, Emma looked directly at Anna. Her eyes, once empty, now shone with unshed tears. On a sudden impulse, she leaned forward and hugged Anna, sobbing silently. Anna wrapped her arms around her, stroking her hair. "Shh, it's okay. Let it out, sweetheart. We're here for you." Charles watched the scene, feeling a lump in his throat. He and Anna had always wanted to have children, but they had never been able to. Now fate had brought this little girl into their lives. He made a silent promise to do everything he could to protect her and help her get through whatever had happened. After a few minutes, Emma calmed down. Anna gently wiped her tears with a handkerchief. "How about a hot bath and some clean clothes? Then we can eat something. You must be hungry." Emma nodded, too exhausted to resist the kindness of these strangers who had welcomed her. While Anna took Emma to the bathroom, Charles went to the kitchen to make something to eat. He hesitated for a moment, realizing that he didn't know what Emma liked or if she had any dietary restrictions. He decided to make something simple: scrambled eggs, toast, and some orange juice. Half an hour later, Emma was back in the living room wearing an oversized t-shirt and Anna's shorts, improvised to fit her. Her hair was damp and combed, and she looked a little more relaxed, though still visibly shaken. "Come in, dear," Charles called from the kitchen. "There's food on the table." Emma hesitated for a moment before moving her chair toward the kitchen. The table was set with simple dishes, but the smell of food made her stomach growl, reminding her that she hadn't eaten in hours. As they ate in silence, Anna and Charles exchanged glances, trying to decide how to approach the situation. Finally, Anna spoke. "Emma, we know you've been through something really difficult. We don't want to put pressure on you, but we need to understand what happened so we can help. Can you tell us a little about yourself, about your family?" Emma put down her fork, staring at her plate. For a moment, Anna thought she wouldn't answer, but then in a low, husky voice, Emma began to speak. "My father, he left me there. He said he couldn't take care of me anymore." Charles and Anna exchanged horrified looks. How could a father do this to his own daughter? "And your mother?" Charles asked gently. Emma shook her head. She left when I was born. It's always been just me and my dad." Anna held Emma's hand across the table. "I'm so sorry, honey. No one should have to go through this." Emma continued, the words coming out in a torrent. Now that she had begun, I have cancer. The doctors said it was difficult and expensive to treat. I think my dad didn't want to deal with it." The silence that followed was heavy, charged with emotion. Charles felt a rising anger toward Emma's father, but he forced himself to remain calm. Anna, for her part, fought back tears. "Emma," Charles said finally, his voice firm but gentle, "what your father did is unforgivable. But I want you to know one thing. From now on, you have a home here with us if you want it. We can't replace your parents, but we will do everything in our power to care for you and help you with your treatment." Emma looked at Charles and Anna, her eyes filling with tears again. You really want me here? Even though you know I'm sick." Anna stood up and walked over to Emma, hugging her tenderly. "Of course we do, my love. You are an amazing and brave girl. It will be an honor to have you in our family." At that moment, something changed in Emma's gaze. A small flame of hope lit in her eyes, mixed with gratitude and a beginning of trust. The following days were a time of adaptation for everyone. Charles and Anna had to quickly learn about the care needed for Emma, from administering her medications to adapting the house to make it easier for her to get around. They also had to deal with legal issues. After reporting the incident to the authorities, the process began to obtain temporary custody of Emma. The lack of any attempt to contact William made the process easier, although it was heartbreaking to see that his father had no intention of going back on his decision. Emma, meanwhile, oscillated between moments of deep sadness and flashes of joy as she discovered Charles and Anna's genuine affection. She began to slowly open up, sharing more about her previous life and her fears about the disease. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after her arrival, Emma was sitting in the garden watching Anna tending the flowers. Suddenly she said, "You know, I used to sing with my mother." Anna stopped what she was doing, surprised by the unexpected information. "Really? I didn't know you remembered her." Emma shook her head. I don't remember actually, but my dad told me. He said she sang to me every night when she was pregnant, and after she was gone, he found recordings she had made for me. Anna sat down next to Emma, touched by the revelation. That's beautiful, Emma. Do you still have those recordings? Emma shook her head sadly. They stayed at my dad's house, but I remember the songs. Sometimes when I'm sad or scared, I sing them to myself. Anna smiled, an idea forming in her mind. Would you like to sing for me sometime? I'd love to hear it. For the first time since arriving, a small smile appeared on Emma's face. Maybe someday. That night, while Emma slept, Charles and Anna talked quietly in the living room. She's starting to trust us, Anna said emotionally, but there's still a long way to go. Charles nodded thoughtfully. Her treatment will be difficult. We'll need help. We'll do whatever it takes, Anna replied determinedly. Emma deserves a chance to live, to be happy, and we're going to give it to her. While the couple planned their next steps, in the next room, Emma slept restlessly. Her dreams mixed images of abandonment with glimpses of hope. And somewhere deep in her subconscious, a melody began to form, a melody that would one day touch the hearts of millions. The months that followed brought a new and challenging routine for Emma, Charles, and Anna. The life that had previously revolved around work and the couple's daily tasks now focused on the well-being and care of the little girl who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. Hospital visits became frequent. Emma endured chemotherapy sessions that left her exhausted and nauseous. Charles and Anna took turns accompanying her, always there, holding her hand through the most difficult moments. One particularly difficult afternoon, after a particularly exhausting session, Emma was lying on her makeshift bed in the living room. Anna sat beside her, gently stroking her thinning hair. "How are you feeling, dear?" Anna asked, her voice thick with concern. Emma turned slowly, her tired eyes meeting Anna's. "I'm tired," she murmured. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it to keep fighting." Anna's heart sank as she heard these words. She held Emma's hand tighter. "Emma, my love, I know it's hard, but you are so strong, so brave. Every day you fight is a victory." Emma was silent for a moment, then said softly, "Can I tell you a secret?" Anna nodded, leaning closer. "When I'm feeling like this, I sing in my head, the songs my mother left for me. It's like she's here with me." Anna felt tears forming in her eyes. "That's beautiful, Emma. Music can be a powerful force. Maybe you could sing out loud sometimes. It might help." Emma seemed to consider the idea for a moment. Then, to Anna's surprise, she began to sing softly. Her voice was weak and a little hoarse, but there was a sweetness and emotion in it that touched Anna deeply. The melody was simple but beautiful. The words spoke of hope, of light at the end of the tunnel. By the time Emma finished, Anna had tears streaming down her face. "That was amazing, Emma," she said, gushing. "You have a true gift." A small smile appeared on Emma's face, the first in days. "Thank you," she whispered. Singing makes me feel closer to my mother and less alone." That night, Anna shared what had happened with Charles. Together they began to encourage Emma to sing more, seeing how it seemed to give her strength and comfort. As the weeks passed, music became an increasingly important part of Emma's life. On good days, she would sing happily, filling the house with melodies. On bad days, when the treatment left her too weak to speak, Charles or Anna would sing to her, repeating the songs they had learned. One day, during a routine checkup, Emma's doctor noticed a change in her behavior. "She seems more lively," he commented to Charles and Anna. "More resilient. What's changed?" Anna smiled. "Music, doctor." Emma has found that singing helps her cope with all of this. The doctor looked intrigued. "Interesting. We know that a patient's emotional state can significantly influence treatment. Keep encouraging this. It may make more of a difference than we realize." Encouraged by these words, Charles and Anna decided to take it a step further. One Saturday afternoon, Charles arrived home carrying a small keyboard. "What is it?" Emma asked curiously. Charles smiled, placing the instrument in front of her. "I thought you might like to learn how to play, to accompany your singing." Emma's eyes lit up in a way they hadn't seen in months. With trembling hands, she touched the keys, producing a few hesitant notes. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Can you teach me?" Charles laughed. "Actually, none of us can play, but we can learn together. What do you think?" Thus began a new phase in Emma's life. Between treatment sessions and days of recovery, she dedicated herself to learning music. Charles found tutorials online, and together they spent hours practicing. At first it was difficult. Emma's hands, weakened by the disease, often shook too much to press the keys properly. But she persisted, with a determination that surprised everyone. Anna noticed that on the days Emma practiced music, she seemed to have more energy. Her appetite improved, and even her resistance to treatment seemed to increase. One night, about 6 months after starting treatment, Emma called Charles and Anna into the room. I wrote a song," she said shyly. "I'd like you to hear it." The couple sat expectantly. Emma placed her hands on the keyboard, took a deep breath and began to play. The melody was simple but beautiful. And then Emma began to sing. Her voice, once hesitant, now flowed with confidence and emotion. The lyrics spoke of pain, of fear, but also of hope and love found in unexpected places. When she finished, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then Charles and Anna burst into applause, tears of pride and emotion in their eyes. "Emma, that was amazing," Anna said, hugging the girl. "Truly special," Charles agreed. "You have a gift, dear." Emma smiled, a flush of pride on her pale cheeks. "Thank you. I wrote this thinking about you, about how you've changed my life." That moment marked a turning point in Emma's journey. Music became not only a form of comfort, but a way to express her deepest feelings, to process everything she was going through. Over the next few weeks, Emma wrote more songs. Some were happy, celebrating small victories in her treatment. Others were melancholic, reflecting on the difficult days and the longing she felt for her former life. At one of her regular checkups, Emma's doctor brought some encouraging news. "The scans show significant improvement," he said, a genuine smile on his face. "The tumor is responding well to treatment, better than we expected, in fact." Charles and Anna hugged, tears of relief in their eyes. Emma, sitting in her wheelchair, looked dazed. Does that mean I can get better?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Emma, we still have a long way to go. But yes, that means we have real reason to hope. You're fighting with everything you've got and you're making a difference." That evening, back home, Emma asked to use the phone. Intrigued, Charles and Anna agreed. With trembling fingers, Emma dialed a number she knew by heart but had never used since the day she was abandoned. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a familiar voice answered. "Hello?" Emma took a deep breath. "Dad? It's me, Emma." On the other end of the line, there was a long silence. Then William's voice, shaky and hesitant. "Emma, my God, are you—" "I'm alive," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "And I'm fighting. No thanks to you, but I wanted you to know. I'm going to beat this, Dad. And one day, I'm going to become someone you'll regret abandoning." Before William could respond, Emma hung up the phone. She turned to Charles and Anna, who were watching the scene with a mixture of pride and concern. "I'm ready to keep fighting," she said, determination shining in her eyes. "With the music, with the treatment, with everything. I'm going to beat this." Charles knelt beside her, holding her hand. "And we will be by your side every step of the way, my dear." Anna joined in the hug, forming a circle of love and support around Emma. In that moment, they all felt that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, as a family. As night fell outside, Emma began to hum a new melody. It was a song of hope, of determination, and of love found in the most unlikely circumstances. A song that, though she didn't know it yet, would one day touch the hearts of millions. The years that followed brought a roller coaster of emotions for Emma, Charles, and Anna. The cancer treatment was long and arduous, with ups and downs that tested everyone's resilience and faith. However, with each obstacle overcome, the bond between them grew stronger, transforming them into a family united by adversity and love. Emma, now 15, stared out her bedroom window, watching the sunrise. Her fingers drummed unconsciously on the sill, creating a silent melody. 5 years had passed since that fateful night when she had been abandoned, and her life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. A light tap on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. "Emma," Anna's gentle voice sounded from the other side. "Are you awake, dear? We have a surprise for you." Puzzled, Emma turned her wheelchair toward the door. "Come in, Mum." The word still sent a rush of emotions through Anna every time she heard it. She walked into the room with a radiant smile, followed by Charles, who was carrying a large rectangular package. "Good morning, my star," said Charles, placing the package on Emma's bed. "Happy birthday." Emma's eyes widened. With all the whirlwind of emotions the past few days had brought, she had almost forgotten about her own birthday. "You didn't have to." "Of course we did," Anna interrupted, sitting down next to her. "Especially today. Come on, open up." With hands trembling with anticipation, Emma tore open the wrapping paper. When she saw what was inside, her breath caught in her throat. It was a beautiful guitar, with mother-of-pearl detailing on the neck. It's beautiful," she whispered, running her fingers over the strings. Charles knelt beside her. "We thought it was time you had an instrument of your own, something you could take with you wherever you went." Emma hugged the guitar to her chest, tears of gratitude streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you. I don't even know what to say." Anna stroked her hair, which had now grown back into soft curls. "You don't have to say anything, dear. We just want to see you happy and healthy." And speaking of health, Emma looked up, curious. Charles and Anna exchanged a meaningful look before Charles continued. "We got a call from Dr. Santos this morning. He wants to see us this afternoon. He said he has important news." Emma's heart raced. She had undergone a series of tests the week before, the last in a long and grueling process of treatment. Were these the final results? "Do you think—" she began, hardly daring to hope. Anna took her hand. "We don't want to get our hopes up, dear, but Dr. Santos seemed optimistic. Either way, we'll get through this together, as we always have." Emma nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and hope. She looked down at the guitar in her lap, a tangible symbol of the love and support she had received over the past few years. Whatever the future held, she knew she would not be alone. A few hours later, the family sat in Dr. Santos's office. The doctor, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, looked at them with a serene smile. "Well, Emma," he began, "it's been a long, hard 5 years. You've faced challenges that would make most adults give up. But your strength, your determination, well, I've never seen anything like it." He paused, creating a moment of suspense that made everyone's hearts race. "And it is with great joy that I can say, you won, Emma. The latest scans show that you are completely cancer-free." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma blinked, the doctor's words taking a moment to sink in. Beside her, Charles and Anna sobbed openly, holding each other close. I'm cured," Emma finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Santos nodded, his own eyes welling up. "Yes, Emma, you're cured. Sure, we'll have to have regular checkups for the next few years, but the worst is over. You have your whole life ahead of you now." The tears finally came, a flood of emotions that had been bottled up for so long. Emma found herself wrapped in Charles and Anna's arms, the three of them crying and laughing at the same time. "Thank you," she whispered between sobs. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Charles kissed the top of her head. "Never, my star. We would never give up on you." The drive home was a surreal mix of joy and disbelief. Emma stared out the car window, seeing the world with new eyes. Every tree, every building, every person on the street seemed more vivid, more real. When they arrived home, a surprise awaited them. The small front yard was decorated with balloons and banners, and a group of people were eagerly waiting. They were neighbors, friends from the school Emma had attended when her health allowed, and even some nurses and doctors who had become close during her treatment. "Surprise!" everyone shouted as the car stopped. Emma felt her heart fill with love and gratitude. All these people had been by her side, rooting for her, praying for her, and now they were here to celebrate her victory. Amidst hugs, tears, and laughter, Emma was taken to the center of the garden. Someone had set up a small makeshift stage with a microphone and some instruments. "Emma," Anna called, stepping onto the stage. "Throughout these years, your music has been your strength and our inspiration. We'd like you to share that with all of us today. What do you say?" Emma looked at the crowd of smiling faces, at Charles and Anna who were watching her proudly, and at the guitar that was still in her lap. Slowly, she nodded. With Charles's help, she stepped onto the stage and positioned her guitar. Her hands were shaking slightly, but when she began to play, all her anxiety disappeared. The melody flowed from her fingers as if it had a life of its own, and when she began to sing, her voice was clear and strong. It was a song she had written during the long nights in the hospital, a song about hope, perseverance, and the power of love. As she sang, Emma saw tears in the eyes of many in the audience. She realized that her journey had not only transformed her own life, but had touched the lives of everyone around her. When the song ended, there was a moment of reverent silence before the audience burst into applause. Emma smiled, feeling truly happy and at peace for the first time in years. That night, after all the guests had left, Emma sat on the porch with Charles and Anna, watching the stars. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Charles smiled. "Now, my dear, the world is yours. You can do anything you want." Anna nodded. "Exactly. You have a second chance at life, Emma. A chance to make all your dreams come true." Emma was silent for a moment, reflecting. Then, with determination in her voice, she said, "I want to use my music to help other people. People who are going through what I went through. I want to give them the hope that you gave me." Charles and Anna exchanged proud looks. "And we'll be by your side every step of the way," Anna said. Emma smiled, looking up at the starry sky. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. There were still many challenges to overcome, including the physical after-effects of her long battle. But for the first time in her life, she was not afraid of the future. With music in her heart, the love of her adoptive family, and an unwavering determination, Emma was ready to face whatever fate had in store for her. Her journey of self-improvement was just beginning, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take her. The years that followed brought a series of changes and challenges for Emma. Now 18, she found herself on the threshold of adulthood, ready to explore the world with fresh eyes and a heart full of purpose. The morning was cool when Emma woke, the sun barely beginning to filter through the curtains of her bedroom. She stretched out on her bed, savoring the moment of tranquility before what promised to be a busy day. Her eyes fell on the guitar leaning in the corner, a constant reminder of her journey and her dreams. With a determined sigh, she sat up and transferred herself to her wheelchair with the skill that comes with practice. Although her health had improved significantly in recent years, the after-effects of her long cancer treatment still affected her mobility. However, Emma had learned not to see this as a limitation, but as part of who she was. As she stepped out of the room, the smell of fresh coffee and toast greeted her. In the kitchen, she found Charles and Anna, both busy preparing breakfast. "Good morning, my star," Charles said, leaning down to kiss the top of her head. "Ready for the big day?" Emma smiled, a mix of nervousness and excitement in her eyes. "I guess so. It still feels like a dream, you know?" Anna placed a cup of tea in front of Emma. "It's real, honey. You've worked hard for this. We're so proud of you." The big day they were referring to was Emma's first solo performance at a local music festival. Over the past few years, she had dedicated herself intensely to her art, writing songs that spoke of her journey, of hope and resilience. What began as personal therapy soon turned into something bigger. Her first few performances were small, at hospitals and cancer treatment centers. Emma sang to patients, sharing her story and bringing a ray of hope to those facing similar battles. As her, the response was overwhelming. Patients, families, and even medical staff found comfort and inspiration in her music. Gradually, her reputation grew. Videos of her performances began to circulate on the internet, touching hearts far beyond the hospital walls. And now, finally, she had the chance to take her message to a wider audience. "Have you reviewed your playlist?" Anna asked, bringing Emma back to the present. "Yes, Mama," Emma replied, using the affectionate nickname she had adopted for Anna. "I think I found the right balance between the more emotional songs and the more upbeat ones." Charles smiled proudly. "I'm sure it'll be amazing. Just don't forget to enjoy the moment, okay? This is your dream come true." Emma nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude for these two wonderful beings who had become her parents in every way that mattered. After breakfast, the morning passed in a blur of preparations. Emma rehearsed once more, checked her equipment, and made sure everything was ready for the performance. When they finally arrived at the festival grounds, Emma felt her heart race. The park was packed with people, with several tents and stages scattered throughout the area. Musicians of all styles were preparing for their performances, creating a lively cacophony of sounds. "Wow!" Emma murmured, taking in everything with wide eyes. One of the event organizers approached, smiling warmly. "Emma, I'm so glad you're here. We're all so excited to hear you sing. Come on, I'll show you where you'll be performing." As they followed the organizer, Emma noticed the curious looks she received. Some recognized her from online videos, others seemed intrigued to see a young artist in a wheelchair. She held her chin up, determined to be judged on her music, not her physical condition. The stage designated for her was smaller than the main stage, but still impressive. A ramp had been installed, allowing her to climb up without difficulty. Emma felt a surge of gratitude for the consideration. The hours leading up to her performance passed in the blink of an eye. Before she knew it, it was her turn to take the stage. Charles and Anna hugged her one last time, their eyes shining with pride. "Go out there and shine, my star," whispered Charles. Heart pounding, Emma walked up the ramp and stood in the center of the stage. The crowd that had gathered was larger than she had expected, hundreds of faces looking at her expectantly. For a moment, fear threatened to overwhelm her. What if she wasn't good enough? What if people didn't understand her music? But then her eyes found Charles and Anna in the front row, smiling encouragingly. She took a deep breath, remembering all the battles she had already won. This was just one more challenge to overcome. Emma adjusted the microphone and began strumming her guitar. The first notes of her song floated through the air, silencing the crowd. And then she began to sing. Her voice, clear and emotional, carried the weight of her journey and the lightness of her hope. The first song spoke of the dark days in the hospital, the uncertainty and fear. But as the melody progressed, it transformed into an anthem of overcoming and gratitude. The audience was mesmerized. Some people wept openly, others smiled, recognizing their own struggles in Emma's words. When the song ended, there was a moment of reverent silence before a burst of applause filled the air. Encouraged by the warm response, Emma continued. Each song told a part of her story: the abandonment, the illness, the adoption by Charles and Anna, the fight against cancer, and finally, the victory and rediscovery of herself through music. Her final performance was a song she had composed, especially for the festival. It was a celebration of life, human resilience, and the power of community. As the final chords faded, the audience erupted in deafening applause. Emma looked out at the crowd, tears of joy in her eyes. She saw excited faces, people hugging each other, some holding up their phones with flashlights on, creating a sea of lights. At that moment, Emma felt she had found her purpose. Her music was not just a form of personal expression, but a way to connect with others, to offer comfort and inspiration. After the performance, many people came up to talk to her. There were cancer survivors who identified with her journey, parents of sick children who found hope in her words, and young artists inspired by her courage. A young woman approached shyly, holding a notepad. "Hi, Emma. My name is Louisa. I'm a journalist for the local newspaper. Could I ask you a few questions?" Emma smiled, nodding. "Sure, I'd be happy to chat." Louisa looked nervous, but her eyes shone with admiration. "Your story is incredible. How did you find the strength to transform so much pain into something so beautiful?" Emma thought for a moment before answering. "I think it was a combination of things. The unconditional love of Charles and Anna, who held me when I needed it most. The music, which became my way of processing everything that was happening. And the knowledge that if I survived, I wanted to do something meaningful with my second chance at life." The interview continued, with Louisa asking questions about Emma's creative process, her plans for the future, and how she saw her role as an inspiration to others. "You mentioned in one of your songs the abandonment you suffered as a child," Louisa said hesitantly. "Does that still affect you?" Emma felt a tightness in her chest, but answered honestly, "It's a part of my story that I'll never forget. For a long time I carried a lot of anger and hurt, but I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting or justifying what happened. It's about letting go of the weight of the past. Today, I use that experience to fuel my art and to help others who may feel abandoned or hopeless." When the interview ended, Louisa thanked everyone emotionally. "Your music and your story will touch many lives, Emma. Thank you for sharing them with us." The rest of the day passed like a dream. Emma watched other performances, met other musicians, and was even invited to participate in a podcast about art and overcoming obstacles. It was evening when she, Charles, and Anna finally returned home. Exhausted but radiant, Emma settled into the living room. "So," Charles said, sitting down beside her, "how do you feel?" Emma smiled, tears of happiness shining in her eyes. "Fulfilled, grateful, and hopeful. I feel like this is just the beginning." Anna joined them, hugging Emma. "It is, my love. You have a long and bright road ahead of you." That night, lying in bed, Emma reflected on the day. She knew there were still challenges ahead. The world would not always be kind or understanding to an artist in a wheelchair. There would be hard days, doubts, and obstacles. But she also knew she had the strength to face whatever came her way. She had her music, her voice, and the unwavering love of her family. And most importantly, she knew that her story and her art could make a difference in people's lives. With that comforting thought, Emma fell asleep, dreaming of the many melodies yet to come and the lives they would touch. Emma's success at the local festival was just the beginning. In the months that followed, her music career took off in ways that even she could not have predicted. Her story of resilience, combined with her undeniable musical talent, touched hearts across the country. Now 20, Emma was preparing to release her first full-length album. The recording studio had been adapted to accommodate her wheelchair, and she spent long hours working on her compositions, perfecting every note and word. It was a Thursday afternoon when Emma finished recording the last track of the album. Exhausted but radiant, she walked out of the recording booth to find Charles and Anna waiting for her, proud smiles on their faces. "So?" asked Charles eagerly. "How was it?" Emma smiled, a mix of relief and accomplishment in her eyes. "It was perfect. I can't believe we're actually done." Anna hugged her, tears in her eyes. "We are so proud of you, my love. You have worked so hard for this." The producer, a middle-aged man named Roberto, emerged from the control room with a broad smile. "Emma, this is going to be big. Your album, it has soul. It's not every day we get to work with something so authentic and powerful." Emma blushed at the compliment, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "Thank you, Roberto. I couldn't have done it without your guidance." As they discussed next steps, mastering, album art, release strategies, Emma's phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out, frowning at the unfamiliar number. "Hello?" she answered, curious. "Emma?" A hesitant, vaguely familiar male voice sounded on the other end of the line. It's William, your father." The world seemed to freeze around Emma. She felt the blood drain from her face, her hand gripping the phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Charles and Anna immediately noticed the change in her expression. "Emma, is everything okay?" Anna asked, worried. Emma gestured for a moment, her mind racing. It had been years since she had heard William's voice, years since that last phone call when she, still a teenager battling cancer, had declared that she would become someone. he would regret abandoning. "What do you want?" she finally managed to say, her voice surprisingly steady. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I saw you on TV, your benefit concert last month. You look amazing, Emma." Emma closed her eyes, fighting the wave of emotions that threatened to engulf her. Anger, hurt, confusion, they all mixed together in her chest. "Thank you," she replied dryly. "Is that all?" "No, William hesitated again. "I was wondering if we could meet. Talk. I know I don't deserve it, but—" "You're right," Emma interrupted him, her voice now shaking slightly. "You don't deserve it, but I'll think about it. I'm not promising anything." Before William could respond, she hung up the phone. For a moment she stood there, staring at the phone in her hand, as if it were an alien object. "Emma?" Charles's gentle voice brought her back to reality. "Who was that?" She looked at her adoptive parents, seeing the concern in their eyes. It was William, my biological father." The revelation was met with shocked expressions. Anna immediately knelt down beside Emma's chair, holding her hand. Oh dear. What did he want? Emma briefly explained the conversation, her voice monotone, as if she were talking to a stranger and not the man who had abandoned her so many years ago. "He wants to meet me," she concluded. "To talk." Charles frowned, protective anger evident in his eyes. "You don't owe him anything, Emma. You don't have to see him if you don't want to." Emma nodded, grateful for the support. "I know, but part of me wants to know why. Why now? Why after all this time?" The rest of the day passed in a blur. The joy of completing the album was overshadowed by the shadow of the past that suddenly resurfaced. Emma found herself lost in thought, remembering that terrible night when she was abandoned, the years of battling cancer, and all the road she had traveled since then. At home that evening, she sat on the porch absently strumming her guitar. Charles joined her, offering her a cup of hot tea. "A penny for your thoughts?" he asked softly. Emma smiled weakly. "Are they worth that little?" Charles laughed, sitting down next to her. "They're priceless to me, but I thought the phrase sounded nice." There was a moment of comfortable silence between them before Emma spoke again. "I'm thinking of meeting him," she said finally. "William." Charles nodded slowly. "I see. May I ask why?" Emma stopped playing, staring off into the distance. I think I need closure. All these years he's been like a ghost in my life, always present even in his absence. Maybe if I find him, I can finally put this behind me." "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Charles asked gently. "I don't want to see you get hurt again," Emma smiled, taking Charles's hand. "I'm not that scared little girl anymore, Daddy. I'm stronger now and I have you. No matter what happens at this meeting, I know I have a home and a family to come back to." Charles hugged her, kissing the top of her head. "Always, my star. Always." In the days that followed, Emma struggled with her decision. She talked to Anna at length, weighing the pros and cons, and even discussed the situation with her therapist. Finally, a week after the initial call, she picked up the phone and dialed William's number. "Hello?" His voice sounded anxious on the other end of the line. "William, it's Emma," she said, her voice calm and controlled. "I've thought about what you said. I agree to meet." There was a pause, as if William was surprised by her response. Thank you, Emma. It means a lot to me." "Don't jump to conclusions," Emma warned him. "This isn't a reconciliation, it's just a conversation." "I see," William replied, his voice more measured now. "When and where would you like to meet?" They arranged to meet at a neutral cafe in the city center 2 days later. Emma insisted that Charles and Anna be present, not necessarily at the same table, but close by. William agreed without hesitation. When the day finally arrived, Emma found herself sitting in the cafe, her heart pounding in her chest. Charles and Anna were at a nearby table, offering encouraging smiles whenever she looked their way. The bell on the cafe door rang, and Emma looked up. William walked in, looking older and more tired than she remembered. His eyes swept the room until they met hers. For a moment, father and daughter stared at each other, years of unspoken history hanging between them. Then, slowly, William approached the table. "Hello, Emma," he said softly. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." Emma nodded, indicating the chair across from her. "Please sit." As William settled in, Emma felt a strange calm come over her. She was no longer that frightened, abandoned girl. She was a strong woman, a survivor, an artist. Whatever came of this conversation, she was ready to face it. "So," she said, looking directly into her biological father's eyes, "you wanted to talk. I'm listening." And so, in a small cafe, under the watchful and protective gaze of Charles and Anna, Emma prepared to confront her past and perhaps pave the way for a future she had never imagined. The silence between Emma and William seemed to weigh a ton, filling the space between them in the small cafe. Emma watched the man in front of her, noticing the lines on his face, the grey at his temples, signs of a time that had not spared either of them. William cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. You look beautiful, Emma, so grown up." Emma raised an eyebrow. 10 years will do that to a person." The comment hit William like a slap. He looked down, embarrassed. "I deserve this. I deserve much worse, actually." "Why now?" Emma asked, getting straight to the point. "Why after all this time?" William took a deep breath before answering. "I saw you on TV. Your benefit concert. It was like time stood still. Seeing you there, so strong, so talented. It was a shock. To realize everything I'd lost, everything I'd thrown away." Emma felt a confusing mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, a twinge of satisfaction at having proven her worth. But most of all, an aching curiosity. "That doesn't answer my question," she insisted. "Why now? What's changed?" William looked her in the eye for the first time since he sat down. "I'm dying, Emma." The words fell like stones into the silence between them. Emma felt as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. "What?" she finally managed to say. "Cancer," William explained, his voice shaking. "Ironic, isn't it? The same disease I used as an excuse to abandon you is now consuming me." Emma closed, her eyes trying to process the information. Part of her wanted to laugh at the cruelty of fate. Another part wanted to cry. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," William continued. "I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted the chance to see you one last time, to tell you that I'm sorry, that I regret every day of my life for leaving you." Emma opened her eyes, staring at the broken man in front of her. "Do you have any idea what I've been through? The fear, the pain, the loneliness?" Tears began to stream down William's face. "No, I don't. And that's my greatest shame. I should have been there. I should have been the father you deserved." "But it wasn't," Emma said, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "Charles and Anna were. They loved me unconditionally, supported me through every surgery, every round of chemotherapy, every night of pain and fear." William nodded, wiping away his tears. "I saw the way they look at you, the love in their eye. It's obvious that they are your real parents." There was a moment of silence, heavy with the unspoken truths between them. "I didn't come here expecting you to forgive me," William said finally. "I just wanted you to know that despite all my faults, I never stopped loving you. I was a coward, a fool, but you were always my daughter in my heart." Emma felt her own tears begin to fall. Years of pent-up anger, hurt and confusion seemed to be dissolving, leaving only a deep sadness in their place. "I spent so long hating you," she admitted, her voice low. "I used that anger as fuel to keep going, to prove that I was stronger than you thought." William nodded, a sad smile on his lips. "And you proved it. You're amazing, Emma. Everything you've accomplished is more than I ever dreamed for you." Emma took a deep breath, feeling like a weight was slowly being lifted from her shoulders. "I don't know if I can forgive you completely," she said honestly. But I think I can start trying." William's eyes lit with cautious hope. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you, Emma." They continued talking for hours. William told him about his life over the past 10 years, how remorse had consumed him, how he had tried to drown his guilt in work and alcohol, only to realize too late the void he had created in his life. Emma, in turn, shared more about her journey. She spoke about the love and support of Charles and Anna, how music became her salvation, and her dreams for the future. When they finally said goodbye, it was already night. Emma was surprised to find that she no longer felt the crushing weight of anger she had carried for so long. Can I call you once in a while?" William asked hesitantly. "I understand if you don't want to, but—" Emma thought for a moment before answering. "Okay, but let's take it slow, okay? This is new for both of us." William nodded, gratitude evident in his eyes. "Thank you, Emma, for this chance." After William left, Charles and Anna approached. They had been watching the interaction from afar, respecting Emma's space but always ready to intervene if necessary. "How are you, dear?" Anna asked softly, stroking Emma's hair. Emma looked at her adoptive parents, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "I'm okay, I guess. It's weird. I feel like one chapter has closed, but another is just beginning." Charles knelt beside her chair. "We are proud of you, my star. Your strength, your compassion. You are truly amazing." Emma smiled through her tears. "I learned from the best," she said, hugging them both. In the months that followed, Emma delved into her music with a new perspective. The songs she wrote during this period were different, still emotional and deep, but with a touch of forgiveness and understanding that hadn't been present before. Her album was released to critical and popular acclaim. Emma's honest lyrics and powerful voice touched hearts across the country. She began to play larger shows, often using her platform to speak about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of family support, whether biological or chosen. Meanwhile, Emma kept in sporadic contact with William. They were short, sometimes uncomfortable conversations, but little by little they were building a new relationship. It wasn't perfect, nor was it close to what it could have been, but it was a start. One autumn morning, about 8 months after their reunion, Emma received a call from the hospital. William had taken a turn for the worse and didn't have much time left. Without hesitation, she asked Charles to take her to the hospital. On the way, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The abandonment, the pain, the struggle for survival, and now this strange cycle of life coming to a close. In the hospital room, William looked frail and small in the bed. His eyes lit up when he saw Emma walk in. "You came," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma moved her chair closer to the bed. "Of course I came." They talked softly for a while, reminiscing about moments from their childhood before the abandonment, talking about Emma's recent shows, about the time she was having. Finally, William took Emma's hand, his eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry," he said, "for everything. You deserved so much more." Emma felt her own tears fall. "I know," she replied softly, "and I forgive you." The words came out naturally, surprising even Emma, but she realized they were true. Forgiveness did not erase the past, but paved the way for the future. William smiled, peace finally coming to his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're the best thing I've ever done, Emma. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that." Hours later, with Emma holding his hand, William closed his eyes for the last time. At the funeral a few days later, Emma surprised everyone by asking to sing. She walked up to the small stage set up for the occasion, her guitar on her lap. "This is a song I wrote over the last few weeks," she explained to the small crowd gathered. "It's about forgiveness, about closing cycles, and about finding peace even in the most unlikely circumstances." As she began to play, her voice filled the air with a bittersweet melody. It was a song of farewell, but also of gratitude for all the lessons learned, for all the strength found in adversity. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Charles and Anna hugged her tightly, pride and love evident on their faces. "Are you okay?" Anna asked softly. Emma nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I am. You know, for a long time I thought forgiveness meant forgetting or justifying what happened. But now I understand that forgiveness is about freedom. It's about letting go of the weight of the past so you can embrace the future." As they left the cemetery, Emma looked up at the clear autumn sky. She felt a sense of peace she had never experienced before. The circle had come full circle, but her journey was far from over. With music in her heart and love all around her, she was ready for the next chapter of her life. The months following William's passing brought a number of changes for Emma. At 21, she found herself at the height of her music career, with her debut album reaching the top of the charts and her schedule full of concerts and interviews. On a sunny spring morning, Emma sat on her porch, absently strumming her guitar. The garden she and Anna had planted together was in full bloom, a rainbow of colors against the vibrant green of the grass. "Hey, Star!" Charles's voice snapped her out of her reverie. He approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Deep thoughts?" Emma smiled, accepting the cup he offered. "Just thinking. It seems like just yesterday we were on that deserted road, and now everything has changed so much." Charles nodded, sitting down beside her. "You've grown, Emma, not just in age, but in wisdom and strength. We're so proud of you." Emma laid her head on Charles's shoulder, a gesture she had made since she was a child. "Thank you, Dad, for everything. I don't know where I would be without you and Mom." Before Charles could respond, Emma's cell phone rang. It was Louisa, the journalist who had become a good friend over the years. "Emma, you won't believe what just arrived in the newsroom." Louisa's voice was vibrant with excitement. "What's wrong, Lou?" Emma asked, curious. "The UN is organizing a big event in New York about inclusion and resilience. They want you to be one of the keynote speakers." Emma gaped. "What, but me? Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Louisa replied. "They were impressed with your story and your awareness-raising work. This is an incredible opportunity, Emma." After hanging up, Emma shared the news with Charles, who hugged her tightly. "This is wonderful, my star. You deserve it." In the weeks that followed, Emma's life became a whirlwind of preparations. Between concert rehearsals, recording sessions for her new album, and now preparing for her speech at the UN, she barely had time to breathe. One night, exhausted after a long day of rehearsals, Emma found herself alone in her room, staring at an old photo. In it, a shy, smiling 10-year-old Emma sat in her wheelchair between Charles and Anna. It was one of the first photos they had taken together, shortly after they adopted her. "How things have changed," she muttered to herself. At that moment, an idea began to form in her mind. Taking out her notebook, she began to write furiously, the words flowing like a torrent. The days passed in a blur, and soon Emma found herself in New York, backstage at the grand auditorium of the UN. Her heart was pounding, a mixture of nervousness and excitement coursing through her veins. Charles and Anna were by his side, as always, offering words of encouragement and proud smiles. "You're going to rock, my love," Anna said, adjusting a lock of Emma's hair. "Remember," Charles added, "your story is powerful. You have the power to touch lives today." Emma nodded, taking a deep breath. When it was finally her turn, she rolled her wheelchair onto the stage, the audience's expectant silence welcoming her. Under the bright lights, Emma saw faces of all nationalities, ages and backgrounds, world leaders, activists, celebrities, all there to listen to her. For a moment, she felt the weight of responsibility. Then, remembering her journey, she began, "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emma, and my story begins on a deserted road over a decade ago." Emma shared her journey with eloquence and emotion. She spoke about abandonment, her battle with cancer, her adoption by Charles and Anna, and how music became her salvation. She didn't shy away from the hard parts, the nights of pain, the moments of despair, but she also highlighted the strength she found within herself and the unconditional love she received. "Too often," she continued, her voice steady, "we think of inclusion only in terms of physical accessibility or equal opportunity. And that's crucial, don't get me wrong. But today I want to talk about a different kind of inclusion of the heart." The audience was in absolute silence, caught by every word. When Charles and Anna took me in, they didn't just see a sick girl in a wheelchair. They saw a human being worthy of love, of chances, of dreams. That's true inclusion, seeing beyond physical limitations, beyond labels, and recognizing the incredible potential that lies within each of us. Emma paused, her eyes scanning the audience. Each of you here today has the power to make a difference. Don't underestimate the impact of one act of kindness, one moment of understanding. Because believe me, for someone struggling with adversity, that moment can be the light that guides them through the darkness. She concluded her speech with a song, the same one she had composed that lonely night in her room. It was a soft but powerful melody, speaking of hope, of overcoming adversity, and of the transformative power of love. As the last notes faded, there was a moment of reverent silence. Then, like a wave, the audience rose to their feet in a thunderous ovation. Tears streamed down many faces, and Emma saw smiles of hope and determination all over the auditorium. In the days that followed, Emma's speech went viral. Excerpts of it were shared on social media, quoted in newspapers, and discussed on TV shows. Her message of inclusion and hope touched hearts around the world. Back in Brazil, Emma was welcomed like a hero. Invitations to lectures, charity concerts, and even meetings with political leaders flooded her inbox. One night, sitting on the porch of her house with Charles and Anna, Emma reflected on everything that had happened. "You know," she said softly, "when I was little, after you adopted me, I used to dream of changing the world. It seemed like such a distant dream at the time." Anna smiled, holding his hand. "And now you're doing just that, my love, one life at a time." Charles nodded, his eyes shining with pride. "You've always been our star, Emma. Now the whole world can see your shine." Emma felt tears of gratitude well up in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without your love, your support." "Hey," Charles interrupted her gently, "you're the one who did all the hard work. We just provided the love. The rest? It was all you, my brave one." That night, as the moon rose in the sky, Emma picked up her guitar and began to play softly. It was a new melody, still in formation but already full of promise. As her hands danced over the ropes, Emma thought about her journey, the pains and joys, the losses and gains. She thought about the scared girl she had once been and the strong woman she had become. And there, under the stars, with the love of her family surrounding her and music in her heart, Emma knew her journey was far from over. In fact, it was just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter of hope, of transformation, and of endless possibilities. The melody flowed, carrying with it the promise of a bright future, not just for Emma, but for all those whose lives she would touch with her music and her message. And so, into the night, Emma's star continued to shine, lighting the way for a more inclusive and compassionate world. The success of Emma's speech at the UN opened doors she never imagined possible. At 23, she found herself not only as an acclaimed musician, but as an influential voice on the global stage for human rights and inclusion. One sunny morning, Emma was in her home studio, working on a new composition, when her phone rang. It was her agent, Lucas. "Emma, you're not going to believe this." His voice was thick with excitement. "I just got an invitation from UNICEF. They want you to be a goodwill ambassador." Emma almost dropped the phone in surprise. "What, me? But how?" Lucas laughed on the other end of the line. "Your message is resonating, Emma. They believe you can make a real difference in the lives of children around the world, especially those with disabilities or facing serious illnesses." After hanging up, Emma sat in silence for a long moment, letting the news sink in. Her gaze wandered around the studio, stopping on a framed photo on the wall, herself at age 11, weak and pale after a round of chemotherapy, but smiling as she held a small keyboard Charles had given her. "Who would have thought, huh?" she murmured to the photo, a nostalgic smile on her lips. In the months that followed, Emma's life became a whirlwind blend of music and activism. She traveled the world, visiting children's hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and schools in underserved areas. In each place, she shared her music and her story, leaving a trail of hope wherever she went. During a visit to a children's hospital in Nairobi, Emma met Amani, an 8-year-old girl battling leukemia. Amani's big, expressive eyes lit up when Emma walked into her room, pushing her wheelchair. "Are you real?" Amani asked in a reverent whisper. "I saw you on TV." Emma smiled, moving her chair closer to the girl's bed. Yes, I am, Amani, and I'm very happy to meet you." They spent the afternoon talking and singing together. Emma taught Amani a few simple chords on a small ukulele she had brought. When it was time to leave, Amani held Emma's hand. "When I grow up," she said with determination, "I want to be just like you." Emma felt tears in her eyes. "You're already amazing just the way you are, Amani. Don't ever forget that." That encounter was etched in Emma's heart. Back at the hotel that night, she couldn't get Amani out of her thoughts. Grabbing her notebook, she began writing furiously, a new song taking shape. Weeks later, back in Brazil, Emma was in the studio recording her new album. The song inspired by Amani, entitled Pequenas Luzes, would be the lead single. During a break in filming, she received an unexpected call. It was the director of the hospital in Nairobi. "Miss Emma," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I don't know if you remember little Amani." Emma's heart sank. "Of course I remember. Is she okay?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. She completed her treatment yesterday. The doctors are optimistic." Emma let out a sigh of relief she didn't even know she was holding. "That's wonderful. But that's not all," the director continued. "Since your visit, Amani hasn't stopped singing and playing that ukulele. The doctors say her positive attitude has made all the difference in her treatment. And it's not just her. Other children in the hospital are asking to learn music. You've started something here, Miss Emma." That conversation was a turning point for Emma. She realized she could do more, much more. In the months that followed, between concerts and commitments to UNICEF, she began developing an ambitious project, a foundation to bring music education to children in hospitals and underprivileged areas around the world. The Little Lights Foundation, named after the song inspired by Amani, quickly gained support from artists, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists. Emma worked tirelessly, using her influence and connections to raise funds and resources. A year after her visit to Nairobi, Emma was back at the same hospital, this time to inaugurate the foundation's first music room. Amani, now recovered and radiant, was at her side to cut the ribbon. "Look at this," Emma said, addressing the crowd gathered for the ceremony. "A year ago, I came here thinking I would inspire these kids, but the truth is they inspired me. They inspired us all." She gestured broadly to the room full of musical instruments, adapted for children with different needs. "This room is not just a place to make music. It is a space for healing, for dreams, for possibilities. Because music has the power to transcend barriers, to connect us on a level that goes beyond words." That night, after the ceremony, Emma video called Charles and Anna. Her adoptive parents were beaming with pride. "Oh, my star," Anna said, tears in her eyes. "Look at you, look at all you've accomplished." Charles nodded, smiling. "You're changing the world, Emma, one heart at a time." Emma felt a wave of emotion. "I'm just trying to give back all the love and support I've received. From you, from the doctors, from everyone who believed in me. And you're doing an amazing job," Charles said. "But don't forget to take care of yourself too, okay? We know how dedicated you are, but it's important to find a balance." Emma nodded, recognizing the wisdom in her father's words. She had been so focused on her work and her mission that she sometimes forgot to pause and breathe. In the days that followed, as she oversaw the start of activities in the new music room, Emma reflected on her journey from the abandoned, sickly girl she had become to the strong, influential woman she had become. Every challenge, every obstacle she had overcome had shaped her, preparing her for this moment. One afternoon, while observing a music therapy session with some of the children at the hospital, Emma felt a hand touch her shoulder. It was Amani. "Emma," the girl said, her eyes shining, "thank you for everything." Emma smiled, pulling Amani into a hug. "No, Amani, I'm the one who's thankful. You and all these amazing kids have taught me more than you know." In that moment, watching the children smile and express themselves through music, Emma felt a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. She knew there was still a lot of work ahead, many challenges to overcome, but she also knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was born to do. With the sound of laughter and music in the background, Emma began. to plan the foundation's next steps. There were so many lives to touch, so many hearts to reach, and she was just getting started. As the sun set over Nairobi, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emma looked out the hospital window. The world outside was vast and full of challenges, but also endless possibilities. With music as her ally and love as her compass, she was ready to face whatever came her way, one chord at a time. The years passed quickly for Emma, each bringing new challenges and triumphs. At 28, she found herself at the helm of a global organization, with the Little Lights Foundation expanding to dozens of countries. Her music continued to touch hearts around the world, but now it was just one part of a much larger legacy she was building. One fall afternoon, Emma was in her office at the foundation's headquarters in São Paulo, reviewing reports and planning the next big initiative. The phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. "Emma, it's Dr. Santos." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Dr. Santos had been her doctor throughout her battle with cancer and continued to see her for regular checkups. "Hello, doctor. Is there a problem?" she asked, trying to remain calm. No, in fact, I have some great news." The doctor's voice was filled with enthusiasm. "Remember that neural regeneration study you were in a few years ago?" Emma nodded, remembering the long days of tests and exams. "Yes, of course." "Well, the final results are in. Emma, there's a real possibility that we can restore some function to your legs." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Emma felt as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. What exactly does that mean?" Dr. Santos explained the details. An experimental procedure, months of intensive therapy, no guarantee of complete success. But there was hope. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, there was a chance Emma would walk again. After hanging up the phone, Emma sat in silence for a long time, letting the news sink in. Her emotions were a whirlwind: hope, fear, excitement, apprehension. That night at home, she shared the news with Charles and Anna. Her adoptive parents hugged her, tears of joy in their eyes. "Oh, my star," Anna whispered. "This is wonderful." Charles, ever the pragmatist, asked, "And how do you feel about that, Emma?" Emma hesitated. I don't know. It's amazing, of course, but it's also scary. My wheelchair has been a part of who I am for so long. What if I can't?" Charles took her hand. "Emma, you've overcome much harder things. Whatever the outcome, we'll be here for you. And remember, your strength, your courage, your light, they come from within, not from your legs." Charles's words touched Emma deeply. She realized that regardless of the outcome, this would be another journey of self-discovery and growth. The next few months were intense. Emma underwent the experimental procedure and plunged into a rigorous rehabilitation program. There were days of pain, frustration, and small victories. Every movement, no matter how small, was celebrated. During this time, Emma kept a video diary documenting her journey. She shared not only her physical progress, but also her emotional and spiritual reflections. These videos, posted on her social media, quickly went viral, inspiring millions around the world. One day, about 6 months into treatment, Emma was in a particularly difficult physical therapy session. She was trying to take her first steps, with the help of parallel bars, her body shaking with the effort. "Come on, Emma," encouraged her physical therapist, Dr. Louisa. "You can do it." Emma closed her eyes, gathering all her strength. In her mind, she heard all the voices that had supported her over the years: Charles, Anna, her fans, the children she helped through the foundation. With a cry of determination, she took a step, then another, and another. When he opened his eyes, he realized he had reached the end of the parallel bars. Tears of joy streamed down his face. "I did it," she whispered in disbelief. "I really did it." News that Emma had taken her first steps in nearly 2 decades spread quickly. The media clamored for interviews. Fans flooded her social media with messages of support and celebration. But for Emma, the most meaningful moment came a few weeks later, during a surprise visit to one of the Little Lights Foundation centers. Using a walker, she entered the music room where a group of children were having lessons. The silence that followed was deafening. The children, many of them in wheelchairs or with other physical limitations, looked at Emma with a mixture of shock and admiration. A girl, no more than 7 years old, finally broke the silence. You're walking." Emma smiled, saw tears in her eyes. "I'm trying," she replied softly. "Just like you try every day. Because that's what we do, isn't it? We try. We fight. We never give up." At that moment, Emma realized that her journey to recovery was much bigger than herself. She was a symbol of hope, living proof that limits can be overcome, that miracles happen when we combine science, determination, and love. In the months that followed, Emma continued her rehabilitation, alternating between using a wheelchair and taking short walks with support. She made a point of continuing to use her wheelchair at public events, emphasizing that her identity and worth were not tied to her ability to walk. During the launch of her new album, Renascimento, Emma surprised everyone by walking slowly onto the stage, leaning on a cane. The audience burst into applause and tears. "This song," she announced, her voice thick with emotion, "is for all of us who are constantly being reborn, facing our challenges and rewriting our stories." As she sang, Emma reflected on her journey. From the abandoned girl she had become to the strong, influential woman she had become. Every challenge, every obstacle she had overcome had shaped her, preparing her for this moment. After the show in her dressing room, Emma found a moment of stillness. Looking at herself in the mirror, she saw not just the acclaimed artist or the respected activist, but the sum total of all her experiences, the pains, the joys, the struggles, and the triumphs. In that moment, Emma understood that her true strength was never in her ability to walk or not. It was in her resilience, in her ability to love, in her determination to make a difference in the world. With a smile, she picked up her guitar and began strumming a new melody. It was the beginning of a new song, a new chapter in her life. And as always, she was ready to face whatever came, one chord at a time. As the soft notes filled the air, Emma felt a deep gratitude for her journey, for all the people who supported her along the way, and for the music that had always been her beacon in the darkness. The future was uncertain, full of possibilities and challenges. But Emma knew that whether she walked or was in her wheelchair, she would continue to spread light and hope around the world, inspiring others to find their own inner music and to never, ever give up on their dreams. The years that followed brought a new dimension to Emma's life. At 32, she juggled her music career, her work with the Little Lights Foundation, and her ongoing rehabilitation journey. Her story of resilience had become a beacon of hope for millions around the world, inspiring people to face their own challenges with courage and determination. On a sunny spring afternoon, Emma sat in her home studio working on a new composition. Her fingers danced softly over the piano keys, creating a melody that seemed to capture the complexity of her journey. Leaning against the wall beside her, she found her cane, a constant reminder of how far she had come and how much further she still had to go. The sound of a notification on her phone broke her concentration. It was a message from Amani, the girl she had met years ago in Nairobi, and who was now a 19-year-old medical student. "Emma, I just got accepted for an internship at the WHO. I couldn't have gotten this far without you. Thank you for showing me that dreams are possible." A wide smile spread across Emma's face. Messages like these were the fuel that drove her to continue her work, even on the hardest days. As she responded to Amani with words of congratulations and encouragement, Emma reflected on how her life had become intertwined with so many others over the years. Each story, each life touched, was a new chord in her personal symphony. That night, over dinner with Charles and Anna, Emma shared the news about Amani. "That's wonderful, dear," Anna exclaimed, her eyes shining with pride. "You see, the impact you have goes far beyond music." Charles nodded, smiling. "You planted seeds of hope, Emma, and now you're watching them bloom." Emma felt a rush of emotion. Sometimes it's still hard to believe. I look back and see that scared little girl on the side of the road, and now, Charles added, taking her hand, "you are a force of nature, my star, changing the world one heart at a time." The conversation was interrupted by the ringing of the phone. It was Lucas, his agent. "Emma, get ready!" His voice was thick with excitement. "I've just received an incredible invitation." The Nobel Committee wants you to give a special presentation at this year's ceremony. Emma gaped. What? But how? Lucas explained that the committee had been impressed by the work of the Little Lights Foundation and wanted Emma to represent the importance of art and music in promoting peace and global understanding. After hanging up, Emma was silent for a moment, processing the news. Charles and Anna watched her, their faces a mix of pride and anticipation. Well, Emma said finally, a smile forming on her lips, looks like we have a trip to plan. The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Emma immersed herself in composing a special piece for the ceremony, something that would capture the essence of her journey and the message of hope she wanted to convey to the world. At the same time, she stepped up her rehabilitation program. Although she was already able to walk with the help of a cane, Emma was determined to take to the stage in Oslo on her own, without support. The day before the ceremony arrived sooner than she expected. In her hotel room in Oslo, Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the window at the city lights. Nerves and anticipation kept her awake. A soft knock on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. It was Anna. "Can't sleep, my love?" she asked, sitting down next to Emma. Emma shook her head. "I'm nervous, Mom. What if I can't do it? What if my legs give out in the middle of the performance?" Anna smiled gently, taking Emma's hands in hers. "Emma, listen to me. You've won much bigger battles than this. But even if your legs give out, your voice, your music, your message, they will all remain strong. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be yourself." Anna's words soothed Emma's heart. She hugged her mother, feeling grateful once again for the unconditional love she had received throughout her life. The next morning, the big moment finally arrived. The ceremony hall was packed with some of the world's brightest and most influential minds. Emma waited backstage, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. Charles and Anna were by his side, as they had always been at every important moment in his life. "Remember," Charles said, kissing her forehead, "you're already a winner, my star. Go out there and shine." When her name was announced, Emma felt a wave of determination course through her. With slow but steady steps, she walked to the center of the stage, without a cane, without support. A murmur of admiration ran through the audience. Emma sat down at the piano, closed her eyes for a moment, and then began to play. The melody that flowed from her fingers was a sonic tapestry of her life. There were notes of sadness and abandonment, chords of struggle and perseverance, and a soaring harmony of hope and love. As she played, Emma began to sing. Her voice, rich and moving, filled the hall. From darkness to light, from pain to healing, every step a victory, each note an adventure. We are all musicians in the symphony of life, each one with its own melody, every voice welcome. It doesn't matter if we stumble. The important thing is to get up, for in the music of the heart, there is always a new awakening. The audience was completely silent, many with tears in their eyes. Emma felt as if every note, every word was touching not only the ears, but the souls of the people present. As the last note faded into the air, there was a moment of reverent silence. Then, like a wave, the audience rose to their feet in a thunderous ovation. Emma stood up from the piano, her legs shaking slightly with effort and emotion. Looking out at the audience, she saw faces of admiration, respect, and most of all, hope. In that moment, Emma felt she had accomplished her mission. She had transformed her pain into art, her struggle into inspiration. Later, at the reception following the ceremony, Emma was approached by countless people, world leaders, renowned scientists, fellow artists. Everyone wanted to express how her music and her story had touched them. An elderly man approached, his eyes shining with emotion. "Miss Emma," he said, his voice shaking, "I am a survivor of Auschwitz. I thought I had seen the worst and the best of humanity. But today your music gave me something I didn't know I still needed, renewed hope in the beauty of the human spirit." "Thank you." Emma felt tears in her eyes as she hugged the man. In that moment, she truly understood the power of music, the power of her own journey. Back at the hotel, exhausted but radiant, Emma found Charles and Anna waiting for her. Wordlessly, they wrapped her in a warm embrace. "We are so proud of you, my star," Charles whispered. Emma smiled through her tears. "Thank you for everything. I wouldn't be here without you." That night, lying in bed, Emma reflected on her journey. From an abandoned girl to a woman who had just performed in front of the greatest names in the Yao world. Every challenge, every victory, every note played and sung had brought her here, and as sleep enveloped her, Emma smiled, knowing that her symphony was far from over. In fact, she felt that she was just beginning the most beautiful movement of her life. Time passed like a gentle melody, and Emma found herself celebrating her 35th birthday. The little girl who was once abandoned on a deserted road had grown into a strong, inspiring, and world-renowned woman. Her music touched hearts on every continent, and the Little Lights Foundation had expanded to over 50 countries, bringing hope and opportunity to children in difficult situations around the world. That birthday morning, Emma woke up early, as was her custom. She walked slowly to the porch of her house, watching the sunrise. Her steps were firmer now, although she still carried a cane for support on more tiring days. As the sky turned pink and gold, Emma reflected on her journey. Every challenge, every triumph, every note of music had helped shape the person she had become. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for all the people who had been a part of her story. Charles and Anna, the doctors and nurses who had cared for her, the fans who had supported her, and the countless children and families she had helped through her foundation. The sound of footsteps interrupted his thoughts. It was Charles carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Happy birthday, my star," he said, handing her a cup and kissing her forehead. Emma smiled, feeling the familiar warmth of fatherly love. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." They were silent for a moment, enjoying the coffee and the view. "You know," Charles began, his voice soft, "when Anna and I met you on that road 25 years ago, we could never have imagined where this journey would take us." Emma nodded, overcome with emotion. "You saved my life that day, and you've continued to save it every day since." Charles smiled, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "No, my dear, it was you who saved us. You brought so much light, so much purpose into our lives." They were interrupted by the sound of the phone ringing inside the house. It was Anna, calling them to get ready. The day would be full, an intimate family celebration in the morning, followed by a big fundraiser in the evening, where Emma would perform new music and announce the latest initiative from the Little Lights Foundation. The morning passed quickly, filled with laughter, memories, and planning for the future. Emma felt blessed to be surrounded by so much love, not just from Charles and Anna, but also from close friends who had become family over the years. In the afternoon, as she was preparing for the evening's event, Emma received an unexpected call. It was Amani, now a young doctor working with the WHO. "Emma," Amani's excited voice came from the other end of the line. "Happy birthday. I won't be able to be there in person tonight, but I wanted to tell you some amazing news." Emma smiled, always happy to hear the voice of the young woman she had met so many years ago in a hospital in Nairobi. "Hi, Amani. Thank you, dear. What's this news?" "The WHO has approved a pilot project based on the Little Lights Foundation model," Amani exclaimed, barely containing her excitement. "We are going to implement music therapy programs in pediatric hospitals in 5 different countries. And guess what? I will be leading the project." Emma felt tears of joy forming in her eyes. "Oh, Amani, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." After hanging up, Emma sat for a moment, overwhelmed with emotion, seeing Amani, one of the first children she had ever inspired, now leading a project that could impact thousands of lives. It was more than she could have ever dreamed. The evening arrived, and the event hall was packed. Celebrities, politicians, philanthropists, and most importantly, dozens of children and families benefiting from the Little Lights Foundation were present. When Emma took the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. She smiled, feeling blessed and humbled by so much support and love. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice soft but firm. 25 years ago, I was a frightened little girl, abandoned on a deserted road. Today I stand before you not as a victim but as a survivor, as someone who has learned that our greatest struggles can become our greatest strengths." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the audience. "Each of you here tonight is part of my story. You are the notes that make up the symphony of my life. And together, we are creating a melody of hope that echoes around the world." Emma then announced the Foundation's new initiative, a global scholarship program for young musicians with disabilities or chronic illnesses. It was a way to ensure that more voices were heard, that more stories of overcoming challenges could inspire the world. After the announcements and speeches, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Emma sat down at the piano, her fingers resting gently on the keys. "This song," she said, "is for all of us. For the scared child I was, for the loving parents who took me in, for every person who has ever felt lost or abandoned. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes, and with it, the chance for a new beginning." The first notes flowed, soft and hesitant, like the first rays of sunlight after a long night. Gradually the melody gained strength, incorporating elements from every stage of her life. There were echoes of her early compositions in the hospital, rhythms from the songs that made her famous, and a new maturity that reflected her journey of growth and healing. As she sang, Emma felt as if every moment of her life was converging on this one, every challenge overcome, every victory celebrated, every life touched. It was all there in that song. The audience was completely silent, many with tears in their eyes. As the last note faded into the air, there was a moment of reverence before the room erupted in applause. Emma stood, her eyes meeting Charles and Anna's in the front row. The love and pride in their eyes was all the recognition she needed. Later, after the event, Emma was in her dressing room when she received a surprise visitor. It was a young mother with her young daughter, both in wheelchairs. "Sorry to bother you," the mother said shyly, "but my daughter Sophia really wanted to meet you. Your music has been our strength during her treatment." Emma knelt down to Sophia's eye level. "Hi, Sophia, it's nice to meet you." The girl smiled, her eyes shining with wonder. "When I grow up," she said with determination, "I want to be like you, make music and help people." Emma felt her heart fill with emotion. In that moment, she saw her own reflection in Sophia's eyes. The same determination, the same hope that had driven her all these years. "You're already amazing, just the way you are, Sophia," Emma replied, taking the girl's hands in hers. "And I'm sure you'll do amazing things. Always remember, your voice is powerful, your story matters. Never let anyone convince you otherwise." After mother and daughter left, Emma stood alone, reflecting on the encounter. She realized that her legacy wasn't just about the songs she had written or the awards she had won. It was about the lives she had touched, the seeds of hope she had planted. That night, back home, Emma sat on her favorite porch, looking up at the stars. Charles and Anna joined her, each holding one of her hands. "You know," Emma said softly, "for a long time I wondered why all this happened to me. The abandonment, the illness, but now I understand. Every challenge has prepared me for this moment, to be a beacon of hope for others." Anna smiled, tears in her eyes. "And what a shining beacon you have become, my love." Charles nodded, squeezing Emma's hand. "You turned your pain into purpose, your struggle into inspiration. We couldn't be more proud." Emma looked at her adoptive parents, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "Thank you," she said simply, knowing that those two words carried the weight of a lifetime of love and support. As the night wore on, the three of them sat there, enjoying each other's company and the comfortable silence. Emma knew the future still held many challenges and opportunities. There would be more songs to write, more lives to play, more battles to fight. But in that moment, under the starry sky, surrounded by the love of her family, Emma felt at peace. She had found her place in the world, her unique melody in the great symphony of life. And as the stars shone brightly above, Emma smiled, knowing that her journey was far from over. In fact, she felt that she was just beginning the most beautiful movement of her life, a movement of hope, of love, and of endless possibilities.